subscribe to His God TV. Thank you.
Hello there, you're welcome to His God TV. In today's video, or even before we begin with what we have for you today, let me remind you to subscribe to our channel. We are basically into SHS education as well as history all over the world. For the past weeks, we've been looking at the Chief Examiner's report, and we will look at some of the subjects. And so today we are focusing on another of the art subjects, which is CRS, or the Christian Religious Studies. And so subscribe and also share our links to your friends to also do same, because we are here, we are committed to helping you to pass with distinction and writing Wassce once and for all. Good. So this paper, as I always say, the Chief Examiner's report, and this report deals with students' mistakes, their weaknesses, and their strength in the previous year's Wassce. So whatever we are going to read here are coming directly from the examiners, the markers, those who mark our script as students. These comments are coming directly from them. And so it is up to us not to repeat these same mistakes. Where they encourage us, I think we also have to encourage ourselves to do more. Where they brand as weakness, we try our best to also improve on the performance. Okay, good. So let's begin with our discussion. So let's take a look at the standard of the paper. Now, the standard of the paper compares with that of the previous year are almost the same. Now, the performance of candidates, there was a slight improvement in the performance of the candidates compared to that of the previous year. So this is 2020, and so I think 2020, yes, 2020. So to WAEC, there was an improvement on that. Let's take a look at summary of student strength, and this is the most important of them. Summary of student strength. Now, one, some candidates were able to narrate how God changed a formless earth to a place of life and activity, and stated ways by which humans are destroying God's creation. And this question, I know that a lot of you would answer that question well, so I'm not surprised. Two, many of the candidates also recounted how David resisted taking Saul's life at the wilderness of Ziph, and identified some of the benefits of self-control. So these areas, students were able to do well in these areas. Three, candidates did well in describing the burial of Jesus as narrated by the Synoptic Gospels, and again were able to state ways in which money is overspent during funerals in the society. So these areas, according to WAEC, candidates were able to do well in these areas. However, let's take a look at a candidate's weakness. Okay, let's take a look at the candidate's weakness. Now we know the strength. One, candidates could not outline God's instruction to Joshua on his assumption of leadership over Israel. They were also not able to identify some lessons that political leaders can learn from Joshua's experience. And there was a question on Joshua, God's instruction on Joshua, and according to the examiners, candidates could not outline those instructions. Now, two, candidates were not able to describe the circumstances under which Peter was rescued from prison and the lessons that can be learned from the incident. And this is also strange, right? Yeah. Now, three, candidates were unable to outline Solomon's prayer and the dedication of the temple. And this question always, when I give to my students, they complain because I don't know whether they don't want to learn that part of the syllabus. All right. Now, four, most candidates could not recount the call of the disciples as narrated by Luke. So this is also very important that we take notice of the Synoptic Gospel, with the narration in the three Synoptic Gospel, because they can ask you to narrate one of the narration coming from one of the Gospels. So we should be very, very clear over there. Now let's take a look at the suggested remedies to the weaknesses. Now, tutors should assist students to understand properly God's instruction to Joshua on his assumption of leadership over Israel and assist them to identify lessons that political leaders can learn from Joshua's experience. So if you are a CRS teacher, I hope that this would go down well with you. Now, two, candidates should be taught well on how to describe the circumstances under which Peter was rescued from the prison and lessons that can learn from that. And then also, using the recommended biblical text, teachers of Christian religious studies should help candidates to know, understand, and be able to outline Solomon's prayer at the dedication of the temple. Now, the recommended biblical texts are very important. They have to do with the quotations, because if you're a teacher and you give wrong quotations to students, I'm sure that they are going to miss a lot on the marks. Now let's come to the detailed comments, and these detailed comments has to do with the various top subjects individually. So let's take the various questions, not subject, the various questions individually. So let's begin with the first question. The first question was highlight how God changed a formless earth to a place of life and activity, and then state 4 ways by which humans are destroying God's creation. This was the first question, and I know you would answer this question if you were to be part of that year group. Now, this was a popular question, and most of them scored higher marks. However, because of the way the question was structured, some of the candidates deviated by writing the second creation story, that is the Yahweh's account. So you see, this question demands for what? The first creation account. Okay, the first creation account, how God changed what? A formless earth to a place of life and activity. Okay, some of them were writing the second creation account story. Most of the candidates who answered this question presented their answers in a chronological manner and according to the day each element was created. The B part was well answered. Most of the candidates scored 4 marks. Some of the parts in the B part, some of the points in the B part were as follows. So these were some of the answers that they were also expecting you to state, but were not stated. Of course, candidate did not talk about these points, and so as teachers too, I believe that it is important that we add these points into our note. So the question was state 4 ways by which humans are destroying God's creation. So humans are destroying God's creation through genetic engineering. Of course, that is cloning. If you don't understand cloning, you Google or you search from the dictionary, where they mate two different animals, homosexuality, of course, bestiality, wars and genocide, of course, bleaching and plastic surgery. So you search for the meaning of all of them. This is having sex with animals and all of that. So all these are ways that man are destroying God's creation. It's not only about the degradation of land and all of that, but these human activities as well were also destroying God's creation. So these were some of the points that they were expecting candidates to write. However, some of them also deviated by writing the second account story instead of the first one on the first day, second day, third day. Let's take a look at the question number 2. Outline God's instruction to Joshua on his assumption of leadership over Israel. Identify 3 lessons that political leaders can learn from Joshua's experience. So you recall that Joshua succeeded Moses, right? Yes. And so not many candidates attempted this question, and those who did not answer the question well. Candidates were able to state Moses' prayer for a successor and Joshua's nomination and investiture by Elijah, but failed woefully in stating the instruction given to Joshua. Some of the points which were not stated include the following. So, this question is somehow tricky. If you are not careful, you might not be able to fish out the very instructions given to Joshua. You might recount all the incident that happened with Moses asking for a new leader and the priest coming in to to present him to the people. Now, these were some of the things that they were expecting. God promised to give Joshua every place that the sole of his feet would tread. If you read your RSV Bible, you come across that too. The territory extending from the desert of Lebanon and from the great river Euphrates to the Great Sea would all be for him. Joshua was to be strong and courageous as he would lead the Israelites to inherit the land of their forefathers. It should be noted that the part B was poorly answered, some of the points which candidates did not state in their answer. So the lessons that political leaders can learn from the Joshua experience was that political leaders should not impose a successor. Okay, should not impose a successor but allow God to lead in making such a choice. They should help the people to elect leaders who are both goal-oriented. Political leaders should know when enough is enough and retire honorably, as Moses did. They should be interested in grooming people who can take over from them. And then also political leaders should be patient as they wait to assume leadership position and not take power through evil manipulations and by force of arms. Good. These were some of the points they were expecting students to write. Let's take a look at the number 3. Recount how David resisted taking Saul's life at the wilderness of Ziph. And also the B, identify for benefit of self-control. Now, this was another question most of the candidates answered very well, scored higher marks. Answers were presented in a chronological order or manner. However, one or two points in the scheme which were not stated in candidates' answers were. So these are some of the things that they were also expecting you to write in your answers. David wondered why king of Israel should be hunting him like a partridge in the mountain. David handed over Saul's spear and water jug to him and noted that the Lord rewards everyone for his or her righteousness and faithfulness. The underlying point was not stated by candidates. It should be noted, however, that a few candidates scored all the 4 marks in the B section. It seems from the answers given that a candidate did not understand the expression self-control. Points which were not mentioned in the candidate's answers were as follows. It's a sign of maturity, well thought out decision, it builds trust, it promotes good health. So the part B of the question was not answered well. And according to the examiners, they feel that probably candidates could not understand the meaning of self-control, so they were writing their own things. Let's look at the number 4. Now, number 4 says that outline Solomon's prayer at the dedication of the temple. In what 3 ways can leaders use resources for development of society? Now, this was not a popular question. So bear in mind, in the examination room, we have some questions which are popular. We have already said it, and some questions which are unpopular. And I term the unpopular questions as questions for the fools, because there will be other cheaper questions for you to answer. This was not a popular question, and few candidates who attempted it did not answer Solomon's prayer at the dedication. Surprisingly, they could not answer the part B, which was on ways leaders can use the resources to advance the society well. The points in the B part candidates should note are, so this is in the B part, in what 3 ways can leaders use the resources for development? Investing in the marginalized in the society, the marginalized, those who don't have, the poor. Avoiding corruption and mismanagement, equitable distribution of resources, education and training for all persons. Avoiding unnecessary litigation and wars. Investing in projects that take into consideration generations yet born, unborn. You don't do something today and tomorrow is no more there. Protection of humans and children's rights, ensuring freedom of religion. So these were some of the questions that came around the Old Testament in the CRS. Now let's take a look at the New Testament. The first question that came was that, do not be afraid, henceforth you will be catching men. Describe the circumstance under which the above statement was made. Interestingly, mention 3 factors that prevent people from becoming committed Christians. Now, this question, though popular with candidates, was badly answered. Most candidates could not link the quotation to the Lucan account of the call of the disciples. So you see that students would write the account for you, all right, but you realize that they will be writing other accounts, either from Mark or from Matthew. But this was said in the Luke's account. So the examiners expect you to write exactly what was narrated by Luke. So this was what they were expecting you. Jesus stood by the lake Gennesaret, and the people gathered to hear the word of God from him. Then he saw two empty boats and entered one of them belonging to Simon Peter. And Jesus stood in the boat and taught the people around. It should be noted, however, that the part B was answered well. Let's look at number 6. Describe the burial of Jesus as narrated by the Synoptic Gospels. State 3 ways in which money is overspent during funerals in the society. Now, the description of the burial of Jesus was generally well presented. Many candidates scored higher marks. However, a few candidates did not introduce their answers well by missing out on the points that Jesus was condemned to death by the Sanhedrin. So this, we are looking at the burial of Jesus as narrated in the Synoptic Gospel. So they even expect you to start from when he was condemned by both the Sanhedrin and Pilate. Now, he was crucified between two robbers. Of course, candidates did not also state that at Golgotha, he was crucified on the preparation day, that is, the day before the Sabbath. So all these were some of the points that candidates did not include in their essay. The part B was generally answered well, and most candidates scored full marks. Let's take a look at number 7. Describe the circumstance under which Peter was rescued from prison. What 3 lessons can be learned from the incident? The description of the circumstance under which Peter was rescued from prison, as well as done by a candidate who answered this question, was well done. Okay, well done. Many candidates scored higher marks. However, a few candidates mistook this question to be the first arrest of Peter and John after the healing of the lame man at the beautiful gate. Always you will get some people who go wayward. The part B was also well answered, but this point was not stated by many candidates. The supremacy of God prevails over all authorities. Let's look at the number C. The number C has to do with the epistles, the 6 epistles. Now, this is the first one that came in question number 8. Relate how James addressed the subject of prayer. Okay, and then state 2 roles prayer can play in the life of a Christian. Now, this was a popular question, yes, answered by many candidates in this section. Majority of the candidates answered the part A very well. There was a significant improvement in the way candidates answered questions in this section as compared to the previous year. Part B was also answered very well. One role prayer plays in the life of a Christian, which is not mentioned, was prayer serves as a medium to adore God. This is also one of the things that they were looking in students' work. Now, let's look at 9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Outline the expectations of Peter from the people described above. List 4 factors that prevent Christians from doing the will of God. Now, this was not a popular question, no, and candidates who answered this question performed abysmally. However, some candidates who opted to answer this question did exceptionally well in part A, but scored higher marks. Did exceptionally well in part A and scored higher marks. But all in all, majority of them did not answer the question well. Some even deviated and wrote on Peter's teaching on citizenship. The B part was, however, answered well, points which were not stated as follows. But let's take a look at this question again. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. So which of Peter's teaching is this quote was about? I think it was about living with non-Christians. But people were writing about citizenship. So these were some of the points that were not stated. Religious tolerance, negative culture, practices, and other stuff. Good. So I think this has also been very educative for you. Have a nice day and subscribe to our channel. If you have any question, any thing that you may want us to look at concerning the Wassce, you can write it in the link in the comment section, and we'll read it for you. Have a nice day, and bye bye.